Dear ones, welcome to our Kirtan and Mahasamadhi program. We're honoring Yogananda's life and Sri Yukteswar, his Guru's life. We'll wait for a minute or so here until 7 o'clock before we begin. Welcome, everyone. Let's begin this Mahasamadhi evening now with a prayer together, an invocation to God and Gurus. You can repeat these words out loud or silently in your own heart. Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, beloved friend God, great masters of self-realization, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswarji, and our Guru, Paramhansa Yogananda Ji, all saints and sages, with love and deep devotion, we bow at thy feet. Beloved Masters, we invoke your presence this evening. Help us to feel your infinite consciousness as a living presence within us and coming to us in every circumstance of our lives. Awaken us to your perfect joy, to your limitless freedom and oneness with the divine. We are thine. Be thou eternally ours. Om. Peace. Amen. This evening, as we often do on our Friday night programs, we'll chant together and have some little short meditations in between the chants that may just be for a few seconds or up to a minute or so. And then we'll have maybe one longer meditation, but really quite short, relatively, 5-10 minutes maximum. And Nirmala will share a number of readings related to the last days of our Guru Yogananda and Swami Sri Yukteswar, his Guru, because on the calendar they passed away relatively close to each other, not in the same year, but March 7th for Yogananda and March 9th for Sri Yukteswar. So we are at that time in the year and we honor their lives. And we honor their legacy. We honor their mission. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but that will be woven throughout the readings. But I'll just say a few words about the chanting that we'll do, because this evening we will focus largely on chants of Yogananda, and these are chants that he himself spiritualized. And so he opened a doorway to the infinite for us to walk through and experience that. And I'd like to invite us to do that very particularly this evening. Feel that he is right here chanting with us, that he is right with you, chanting with you, chanting next to you and you hear his voice, chanting inside of you and you feel his presence singing through your voice in your own heart. But feel his conscious living presence, because that's what he gave us in these chants. And they are a priceless opportunity for us to dive deep into that experience. So as I mentioned, there will be little breaks in between the chanting. Take those as an opportunity to dive to the deepest level of the chant. You know, the chant begins with an outward melody, an outward set of words, and a certain rhythm. In a few cases, not very many, but in a few cases, there's even harmony related to the chant. And so those are sort of the outward trappings of the chant in a way. And you're hearing us singing them, and you can sing along with us, of course. But there are progressively deeper and deeper and deeper levels of the chant. And the chant will ultimately lead us into stillness and silence. So try, when the chant formally ends and it's silent here, try to feel the vibration of the words, not just the meaning of the words, but the energy that the words convey and the melody conveys as well. So take those moments as a very precious opportunity to go profoundly inward with the chants. Then we'll go on with another one or a reading, as the case may be. And then we'll share some thoughts later on. So let's begin now chanting together. And we'll chant Jai Guru Paramhansa Yogananda, Jai Guru Jai. Victory to the Guru, victory to the Guru's consciousness especially. I should mention, we will also hear a short selection, a short part of a talk that Swami Kriyananda gave on the occasion of Master Mahasamadhi that comes to us from many years ago, but it's quite pertinent to today and to feeling his energy. Jai Guru Jai, Guru Jai, Guru Jai, Guru Jai, Guru Jai. Mahasamadhi Yogananda Jai, Guru Jai. Mahasamadhi Yogananda Jai, Guru Jai, Guru Jai, Guru Jai. Jai temple of silence, in the temple of peace, I will meet thee, I will touch thee, I will love thee, and coax thee to my altar of peace. In the temple of Samadhi, in the temple of bliss, I will meet thee, I will touch thee, and coax thee to my altar of bliss.
Touch me, I will love you. So we'll have a reading. And as many of you know, Yogananda came to America in 1920, and he did not see his guru, Sri Yukteswar, until 1936, when he went back to India for a visit. Would you give me some hot water? And so it had been 16 years, and the reunion of these two great souls when they met is very beautiful. I won't read that, but you can read it in Autobiography of a Yogi. My Return to India is the chapter. And Yogananda spent a lot of time with Sri Yukteswar, just enjoying that bliss of communion. And one of the days when he went to see his guru in the ashram, he comes in and finds him alone. And he says, "Guruji, I am glad to find you alone this morning." I had arrived carrying fruit and flowers for his guru. Sri Yukteswar glanced at me meekly. "What is your question?" Master looked about the room as though he was seeking an escape. "Guruji, I came to you as a high school youth. Now I am a grown man, even with a gray hair or two. Though you have showered me with silent affection from the first hour to this, do you realize that once only, on the day of our meeting, have you ever said, 'I love you'?" I looked at him pleadingly. Master lowered his gaze. "Yogananda, must I bring out into the cold realms of speech the warm sentiments best guarded by the wordless heart? Guruji, I know you love me, but my mortal ears ache to hear you say so." "Be it as you wish." And Sri Yukteswar had obviously known this was happening. That's why he was meekly answering and asking Yogananda what his question was and looking for an escape. He didn't want to bring that into cold words, that deep feeling that he had. "Be it as you wish," he said. "During my married life, I often yearned for a son to train in the yogic path. But when you came into my life, I was content. In you, I have found my son." Two clear teardrops stood in Sri Yukteswar's eyes. "Yogananda, I love you always." "Your answer is my passport to heaven," I said. I felt a weight lifted from my heart, dissolved forever at his words. Often had I wondered at his silence, realizing that he was an unemotional and self-contained person, yet sometimes I feared I had been unsuccessful in fully satisfying him. His was a strange nature, never utterly to be known, a nature deep and still, unfathomable to the outer world, whose values he had long transcended. So I read that to set the stage for how deeply Yogananda felt about his guru. Not just the lofty spiritual ideals and training and discipline and willpower and all of the things that made these great souls great, but also the human love, the, the attunement and the sweetness of that divine friendship. The Guru is the greatest friend we will ever have. The Guru is God manifest in our lives. And so all of these readings tonight pertain to that relationship and that divine love. So Yogananda was spending some time in Sri Yukteswar's ashram, and then he showed Sri Yukteswar the almanac for that year and said, "Look, the Kumbh Mela is happening, and I would like to go. You were blessed at a Kumbh Mela to see Babaji, so maybe I will see him too." And Sri Yukteswar says, "Do you really want to go?" And he's saying basically, "Don't leave me." And Sri and Master says, "Well, maybe I'll see Babaji." And Sri Yukteswar says, "No, you won't see him this time." And then he was silent because he didn't want to spoil Yogananda's enthusiasm, and he didn't want to impose on his will. And also, as Yogananda goes on to tell, God did not want Yogananda to be present for Sri Yukteswar's passing. God had arranged in many other relationships, like Yogananda's mother when she passed away, God had arranged that Yogananda would not be there to personally experience the helplessness of not being able to do anything. And so Master was arranged for Master that he would be away at the Kumbh Mela. And also, Sri Yukteswar had asked Yogananda to write about the life of Lahiri Mahashaya, who was Sri Yukteswar's guru. And so on this trip of nearly a year in India, Master did a lot of research and interviewed many disciples of Lahiri Mahashaya in order to be able to write as well as he could about the life of this great master. And so Yogananda, saying in this little verbal tussle with Sri Yukteswar about going to the Kumbh Mela, then he did indeed go off. And as he was leaving, Sri Yukteswar gave him his blessing, very simple, very quiet, just the normal blessing that he always would give him when he left his sight. And that was the last time that they saw each other alive in this world in that way. And so Yogananda left for the Kumbh Mela on January 23rd. This was 1936. And then he spent time at the Kumbh Mela. There's millions of people there. It goes on for days. It's the biggest festival, spiritual festival in India. It happens every 12 years, and the Ardha Mela is every 6 years. And so after he and his small group experienced the Kumbh Mela, they did not see Babaji. Then they did other traveling, and met with Yogananda and many other events and programs. And then on March, I think maybe a few days before Master's passing, I'll read this part. In early March, our little group reached Calcutta. Eager to see Sri Yukteswar, I was disappointed to hear that he had left Serampore and was now in Puri, about 300 miles to the south. Come to Puri Ashram at once. This telegram was sent on March 8th by a brother disciple, one of Master's chelas in Calcutta. News of this message reached my ears. Anguished at its implications, I dropped to my knees and implored God that my Guru's life be spared. As I was about to leave his father's home for the train to go directly to Puri, a divine voice spoke within. Do not go to Puri tonight. Thy prayer cannot be granted. Lord, I said, grief-stricken, thou dost not wish to engage with me in a tug of war at Puri, where thou wilt have to deny my incessant prayers for Master's life? Must he then depart for higher duties at thy behest? In obedience to the inward command, I did not leave that night for Puri. The following evening I set out for the train. On the way, at 7 o'clock, a black astral cloud suddenly covered the sky. And it was at 7 o'clock that Sri Yukteswar left his body. Later, when the train roared toward Puri, a vision of Sri Yukteswar appeared before me. He was sitting, very grave of countenance, with a light on each side of him. Is it all over? I said, my arms outstretched beseechingly. He nodded and slowly vanished. As I stood on the Puri train platform the following morning, still hoping against hope, an unknown man approached me. Have you heard that your master is gone? He left me without another word. I never discovered who he was, nor how he had known where to find me. Stunned, I swayed against the platform wall, realizing that in diverse ways my Guru was trying to convey to me the devastating news. Seething with rebellion, my soul was like a volcano. By the time I reached the Puri hermitage, I was nearing collapse. The inner voice was tenderly repeating, collect yourself, be calm. I entered the ashram room where Master's body, unimaginably lifelike, was sitting in the lotus posture, a picture of health and loveliness. A short time before his passing, my Guru had been slightly ill with fever, but before the day of his ascension into the infinite, his body had become completely well. No matter how often I looked at his dear form, I could not realize that its life had departed. His skin was smooth and soft. In his face was a beatific expression of tranquility. He had consciously relinquished his body at the hour of mystic summoning. I cried out in a daze, the Lion of Bengal is gone. So he performed all the rites, and there's even a film clip that you can find on the internet of the procession of Master leading with Sri Yukteswar's body to the burial place in Puri. And you can see the power and the grief and the intensity in Master's face in this moment. And he returns to Calcutta afterwards. And he calls to him one of the children, the young disciples that Sri Yukteswar had in the ashram at the time of his passing. And he arranges for this boy to go to the school that Yogananda founded in Ranchi. So he settles him. And this boy tells him that the morning you left for the Allahabad Kumbh Mela, Master dropped heavily on the Davenport. Yogananda is gone, he cried. Yogananda is gone. And then he added cryptically, I shall have to tell him some other way. And then Sri Yukteswar sat for hours in meditation. So I'll resume later.
So we'll pause ourselves for a little meditation here. And we'll just meditate 5-10 minutes, but try to feel the blessings of these great avatars. Sorry about the lack of sound there. We'll meditate for a few minutes now and try to feel the blessings, the eternal presence of these great ones. They have to play a certain drama in this world, and we see that working its way out through these great souls. One of them going off to the Kumbh Mela, the other one saying, okay, well, I'll have to tell him a different way. And then these visions coming to Yogananda on the train platform. Don't go tonight, thy prayer cannot be answered. The vision of Sri Yukteswar, the man on the platform saying, don't you know your master's gone? All of these things are immediate. And let's meditate now on that immediacy. Because for the masters, there's no time and space, which means both of them are here right now. Both of them are wherever you are right here, right now. Feel them blessing us just as if we were talking with them, just as if we were sharing a cup of tea or a meditation or whatever, however you would construe the experience of being with these great souls in a human way. Because obviously they played a divine drama, but they also play a human drama. So let's meditate on that now for a few minutes, and then we'll chant a little more and have a few more readings.
So this next part of the story happens as Yogananda is about to travel back to America after Sri Yukteswar's passing. Of course, he's grieving very much, but he's also doing an endless round of meeting with people and banquets and programs and all of that sort of thing that's been set up already. And as it turns out, he has to stay in India longer because they don't have passage on the boat that includes space enough for their big car that they need to have when they get back to Europe. And so they're in Bombay for a bit longer, waiting for passage. And Yogananda says, that's okay, I want to visit Puri one more time. I want to visit my Guru's grave. So he's in Bombay, and he has a vision of Lord Krishna. And he can't understand what Krishna is saying to him, but he sees him, and Krishna gives him a blessing. And then a week later, Yogananda is sitting on his bed in the Bombay hotel room. I was roused from my meditation by a beatific light. Before my open and astonished eyes, the whole room was transformed into a strange world, the sunlight transmuted into supernal splendor. Waves of rapture engulfed me as I beheld the flesh and blood form of Sri Yukteswar. My son, Master spoke tenderly to me, on his face an angel bewitching smile. For the first time in my life, I did not kneel at his feet in greeting, but instantly advanced to gather him hungrily into my arms. Moment of moments, the anguish of past months was toll I counted weightless against the torrential bliss now descending. Master mine, beloved of my heart, why did you leave me? I was incoherent in an excess of joy. Why did you let me go to the Kumbh Mela? How bitterly I have blamed myself for leaving you. I did not want to interfere with your happy anticipation of seeing the pilgrimage spot where I first met Babaji. I left you only for a little while. Am I not with you again? But is it you, Master, the same Lion of God? Are you wearing a body like the one I buried beneath the cruel Puri sands? Yes, my child, I am the same. This is a flesh and blood body, though I see it as ethereal. To your sight, it is physical. I am in truth resurrected, not on earth, but on an astral planet. There you and your exalted loved ones shall someday come to be with me. Deathless Guru, I said, tell me more. Master gave a quick, mirthful chuckle. Please, dear one, he said, won't you relax your hold just a little? So this beautiful story helps us to realize that what we consider to be final, death, it's over, finished. We won't see our loved ones again. It's a dream. Love is eternal, and those relationships of love that we have in our lives are eternal. We will see our loved ones again. And just as that voice within Yogananda was telling him on his way to Puri, knowing, realizing this horrible blow that his beloved guru had left his body was gone, that calm voice was saying, collect yourself, be calm. That is what we need to remember as we go through all the circumstances of our lives that are testing, that are tragic, that are painful, or that are elating. Collect yourself, be calm. That's why it's so priceless to study the teachings of yoga, because they give us the truth that at first we can realize intellectually, and then on deeper and deeper levels until we realize the truth. So I'll just read a little bit now. Since we're running out of time, Sri Yukteswar goes on and explains the astral world. It's a beautiful chapter, an autobiography of a yogi. And at a certain point, Yogananda says, my mind was now in such perfect attunement with my gurus that he was conveying his word pictures to me partly by speech and partly by thought transference. I was thus quickly receiving his idea tabloids. You have read in the scriptures, Master went on, that God encased the human soul successively in 3 bodies: the idea or causal body, the subtle astral body, seat of man's mental and emotional natures, and the gross physical body. On earth, a man is equipped with his physical senses. An astral being works with his consciousness and feelings, and a body made of prana, energy. A causal bodied being remains in the blissful realm of ideas. My work is with those astral beings who are preparing to enter the causal world. So Sri Yukteswar is in a higher realm, helping beings to go to the ultimately high realm. Though I slightly relaxed my embrace at Sri Yukteswar's request, my arms were still around him. Treasure beyond all treasures, my guru, who had laughed at death to reach me. So I think I will skip ahead since we're so short on time today. Never from song or story had I ever received such inspiring knowledge as what Sri Yukteswar was imparting to him about the nature of the universe, and especially of life after death in the astral worlds. Though the Hindu scriptures refer to the causal and astral worlds and to man's 3 bodies, how remote and meaningless those pages compared with the warm authenticity and immediacy, as Dharmadas is saying, of my resurrected master. "Oh, Master," I said, "I was grieving so deeply about your death." "Ah," Sri Yukteswar replied, "wherein did I die? There's some contradiction." Sri Yukteswar's eyes were twinkling with love and amusement. "You were only dreaming on earth. On that earth you saw my dream body, and later you buried that dream image. Now my finer flesh body, which you behold and are even now embracing rather closely, is resurrected on another finer planet of God. Someday that finer dream body and finer dream planet will also pass away. They too are not forever. all dream bubbles must eventually burst at a final wakeful touch. Differentiate, my son Yogananda, between dreams and reality. Grieve not for me, rather broadcast everywhere the story of my resurrection from the God-dreamed earth of men to another God-dreamed planet of astrally garbed souls. New hope will be infused into the hearts of misery-mad, death-fearing dreamers of the world. Yes, Master, I said, how willingly would I share with others my joy at his resurrection. Groveling, man knows well. Despair is seldom alien. Yet these are perversities, no part of man's true lot. The day he wills, he is set on the path to freedom. Too long has he hearkened to the dank pessimism of his dust thou art counselors, heedless of his unconquerable soul.
So we'll have a few words from Swamiji, I think,
Okay,
like on the recording.
yes.
Okay, so
I can do the camera.
okay, so this will be about a little less than 6 minutes long. And this comes from a talk that Swamiji gave on this occasion in 1977. So it's been a while, but tune into the immediacy of it because it is very much now. Let's oops,
I asked him one time, are you an avatar? And he said, one would have to be the examination of this importance. He sort of said it obliquely, but he would have to be an avatar if he was liberated in past life, because that is the definition of an avatar. If we look at his life, and if we try to gain from it all the benefit that we can, we find two things, the outer and the inner. The inner is the reality. The inner is that with which we can commune right here, right now, with which we have communed today. When we are in tune with his spirit, we find that he is with us. He can help as many thousands or millions of people as call to him simultaneously, because his consciousness is omnipresent. It isn't the consciousness of a man, it's the consciousness of spirit. One time when I spent 4 days with Sri Rama Yogi, who was a great saint in India. Master said that if he had spent another half hour with him, he could never have brought himself to leave India again. He felt so much love for him. He said Sri Rama Yogi materialized to Paul Brunton later and asked him for a photograph of Master, and kept it there in his cave. I spent 4 days with Sri Rama Yogi, and Master said he was a fully liberated saint. And so I found that Sri Rama Yogi didn't have any disciples to speak of. He had a student who was a professor at the VR college in Nellore. He had an old uncle in his 90s, I think. And that was, as far as I could tell, his whole band. And I said to him, "Sir, you have so much to give. How come you don't have more disciples?" And he said, "God has done what he chooses to do with his life." And so I had to accept that. But then I said, I wasn't challenging him. I was merely trying to understand. And I said, well, our Guru said that he would come back again and again over countless incarnations to help people. And was that just God's will working through him, I was saying. And he says, you have to understand that when he says, I will come back, it isn't a man saying, I will come back. God is acting through him. And the divine that is expressing through this particular jiva, this particular soul, the divine infinite consciousness will come back again and again through that soul. But Master has no choice in the matter. I should say he assumes no choice in the matter. It's a very important point to understand, because sometimes, particularly if you were living with him, you would wonder, why didn't he come to this person's rescue? Why didn't he help that person? Was he playing favorites? And the truth was that he was simply following God's will. He was following the law. When it was the divine will to help such and such a person, because that person was ready for that kind of help, then he would give it. But if not, he would not. He would only do the will of God. A great master like Christ, you see all the episodes in the Bible described of his healing people, raising people from the dead, and so on. You think, oh, what a great man he was. But there were a lot of people he didn't heal. There were a lot of people he didn't raise from the dead. Why did he heal these few? Because it was the divine will that he acted this particular way. It's a great mistake that people make to say, oh, this master is greater than that master. All masters are equal in God. There cannot be anything but that equality, because their reality is omnipresent. They have destroyed, as Yogananda said, I destroyed Yogananda, I killed Yogananda long ago. There is no one dwelling in this temple now but God. That means there is no ego, there is no feeling of likes and dislikes. There is only the realization that it was the infinite who became the little body of Yogananda for a while, and then became that infinite one again. And this will be someday true for everyone in this room. It has to be true, because this is the goal, this is the destiny of all souls. The time must come when you understand that you are not this body and this personality, that you never have been. The time will come when you realize that that infinite soul, for a little while, maybe a few million years, but really that few million years is nothing in eternity. It looks like it's a long time, but even this little body that we live in right now, this particular incarnation, because we're so close up to it, we see each minute as long. We see each year as an eternity practically. And then when we leave this body, we look back, and it looks as if it just went like a puff of smoke. So little time elapsed compared to eternity. It's really nothing. We can go through hundreds of incarnations. They're nothing when you wake up in the infinite and discover that you have no bondage to time at all.
So, Will, do you want to do a reading, or do you want to have a chant?
We can have a chant.
Okay, so we'll chant together. This is a chant that Yogananda sang himself on the day before his own Mahasamadhi. It's called Light the Lamp of Thy Love. And it's very endearing, because you hear in the chant, change my darkness into light, Lord. And obviously, this is not a sentiment that he needs to express on his own behalf, but for us, it's a great encouragement. And he sang this very deeply for a good hour or more on the day before he left the body. And of course, he would be conscious of that. He was dropping hints to different people along the way about this coming up, wish me luck tomorrow, so forth. And so he knew, but feel his consciousness now as we sing this chant together. This is a chant that he would sing in the ashramas for Yukteswar, all the way back from India. So feel, and the words come from Rabindranath Tagore. So, in the path, this time, Yogananda's Mahasamadhi.
So I'm reading now from Swami Kriyananda's book, The Path, about his life with Master, and he describes the last days that he spent with Master before Master left his body. And I chose these passages because they are so similar. Yogananda wanting to hear Sri Yukteswar tell him of his love, confirm his love for him. And Swami was basically saying the same thing, as you'll see here. Many times over the past 3.5 years, Master had scolded me. Swami was a very young man when he came to Yogananda. He was just 22, so he only had 3.5 years with Master. Master had scolded me, mostly for my slowness in understanding him perfectly, sometimes for not weighing in advance the possible consequences of my words. I knew that he often said, "I scold only those who listen, not those who don't." But in my heart there lingered a certain hurt. Try as I would, I couldn't rationalize it away. For some months I had been hungering for a few words of approval from him. Now, alone with me, he gazed into my eyes with deep love and understanding and said, "You have pleased me very much. I want you to know that." What a burden lifted from my heart at these few simple words. So, Yogananda was trying to prepare his disciples through a variety of ways, different things that he said. And the next passage I'll read is when he was returning from a drive, and he met the monks who were out on the lawn of the ashram energizing, doing the energization exercises, and they all came over to the car, and Master was sort of giving them some last minute instructions, even though they didn't know it at the time. He actually got out of the car and he blessed each one of them. And then he talked to them for a while. "Don't waste your time," he said. "No one can give you the desire for God. That is something you must cultivate yourself. Don't sleep a great deal. Sleep is the unconscious way of contacting God. Meditation is a state beyond sleep, superconsciousness as opposed to subconsciousness. Don't spend too much time joking. I myself like to laugh, but I have my sense of humor under control. When I am serious, nobody can tempt me to laugh. Be happy and cheerful within at all times, grave but ever cheerful. Why waste your spiritual perceptions in useless words? When you have filled the bucket of your consciousness with the milk of peace, keep it that way. Don't drive holes in it with joking and idle speech." And then he said, "Don't waste time on distractions." So I've often thought of the ancient scriptures saying that there are 3 main delusions in this world: wine, meaning intoxicants; women, meaning sex in general; and money. And I think a 4th should be added: the internet. There's so much distraction in this world. Maybe it's part of moving into a higher age from Kali Yuga to Dwapara Yuga, that there's just more and more and more activity and more distraction. So it's important that we dive deep and cultivate the love for God and learn to meditate, and like that calm voice within Yogananda, we should repeat within ourselves, collect yourself, be calm, and spend your time on worthwhile pursuits, edifying our consciousness. So this final reading which I don't really have much time for here. I'll try to synopsize as I go along. Master had asked Swami Kriyananda to go to a banquet that Yogananda was giving a talk at. And so Swami was there with this actor that Yogananda had wanted him to go with, Dick Haymes, who was fairly famous at the time. This was 1952. And so as Yogananda was giving his speech after this banquet, Swami was sitting farther towards the middle of the room, away from Yogananda at the head of the room. He was sitting with this actor friend. And Swami was busily taking notes as Yogananda was giving his speech. And Yogananda had said that years before, when I leave this earth, I want to go speaking of my America and my India. And in a song about India that he had written to the tune of the popular song My California, he paraphrased the ending of that popular version with the words, I know when I die in joy I will sigh for my sunny, grand old India. Once, too, in a lecture he had stated, a heart attack is the easiest way to die. That is how I choose to die. This evening, all these predictions were proven true. Warmly he spoke of India and America and of their respective contributions to world peace and true human progress. He talked of their future cooperation. And finally, he read his beautiful poem, My India. Throughout the speech, I was busily recording his words, keeping my eyes on my notebook. He came to the last lines of the poem. When Ganges, woods, Himalayan caves, and men dream God, I am hallowed, my body touched that sod. Sod became a long-drawn sigh. Suddenly, from all sides of the room, there was a shriek. I looked up. What is it? I demanded of Dick Haymes, seated next to me. What happened? Master fainted, he said. Oh no, Master, you wouldn't faint. You've left us. The forgotten playwright in me cried silently. This is too perfect a way for you to go for it to mean anything else. I hastened to where Master lay. A look of bliss was on his face. Virginia Wright was stooped over him, trying desperately to revive him. The Consul General from India came over to me and put an arm around my shoulders to comfort me. Never, dear friend, will I forget that sweet act of kindness. They brought Master's body to Mount Washington and placed it lovingly on his bed. One by one, we disciples went in, weeping, and knelt by his bedside. How many thousands of years it took, marveled an older disciple, gazing at him in quiet awe, to produce such a perfect face. Later on, after we'd left the room, Dayamata remained alone with Master's body. As she gazed at him, a tear formed on his left eyelid and slowly trickled down his cheek. Lovingly she caught it with her handkerchief. In death, as in life, he was telling his beloved disciple, and through her the rest of us, I love you always, through endless cycles of time, unconditionally, without any desire except for your happiness forever in God. So let us realize within ourselves that deep, eternal love that the Guru has for us, that God, through the Guru, has for us. And let's remember that these bodies are just dream images on this dream earth. And someday we will awaken to our true heart in bliss, in spirit, in divine love.
So concluded the chant, and this is Thou Art My Life, and again words by Tagore, and Yogananda brought this to English. This was originally in Bengali.
I think you have to change the microphones.
Let's close now by asking our Yogananda's blessing, the blessing of all the masters, to flow through us and out into this world, blessing each one of us who are in tune with that ray, but also blessing the whole world, blessing all who are striving for an uplifted consciousness on whatever path they may be on. Feel that blessing flowing through us as we chant together.